standing barefoot on my parents' front porch, while December snow buries my toes. I can still hear my mother's voice, cutting through the cold, like a blade. "You're useless, Emma. You've always been useless." The Christmas lights behind me blink in cheerful mockery as my father shoves a trash bag into my arms. Inside isn't clothing, or documents, or anything that belongs to me, just garbage, a bleach-stained towel, a broken ornament, a half-melted candle. They couldn't even give me the dignity of my own belongings. The door slams so hard the wreath nearly falls off. The deadbolt clicks. Final. Absolute. I stand there in the falling snow wearing nothing but jeans and a thin sweater. No coat, no shoes. Watching my neighbors peek through their curtains and pretend they didn't just witness the Hartfords throw their daughter out like yesterday's trash. My phone shows no service, and my bank account reads $147. For the first time in my 26 years, I understand what it means to be truly unwanted. That's when my numb fingers brush something in my jacket pocket. Something cold, metallic, heavy. The black card my grandfather gave me when I was 7 years old, pressed into my small palm while my parents screamed at each other inside. "Use this only when you have nowhere left to go, sweetheart." At the time, I'd promised him I'd never need it. I was wrong. If you've ever felt like the people who should love you the most actually see you as nothing more than an obstacle, stay with me. Because what I discovered in the days after that night didn't just change my life. It revealed a truth so dark, so calculated, that I'm still processing it now. And I want to share it with you, because maybe my story will help someone out there realize their worth isn't defined by the people who fail to see it. If this resonates with you at all, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I promise you, this journey gets intense, but it ends somewhere worth going. The bag tears open as I stumble toward my car. Random junk spills across the icy sidewalk. My hands won't stop shaking as I fumble with my keys, finally collapsing into the driver's seat. The engine groans when I turn the ignition, heater blowing cold air across my frozen face. I sit there, staring at the house I grew up in, now locked behind a door my parents made sure I could never open again. 20 minutes earlier, we'd been sitting at the dinner table. Christmas Eve. The turkey was burned because my mother spent more time criticizing my posture than watching the oven. My father complained about the cost of the holiday lights. My brother Michael rolled his eyes at everything I said. Then I made my mistake. I told them I wouldn't co-sign the loan they wanted under my name. Suddenly I was ungrateful, selfish, a leech. Their words piled up faster than the snow outside. My mother snapped first, calling me a disappointment. My father followed with a shouted, "Get out!" that echoed down the hallway. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed how fast my family could discard me. They always said I'd come crawling back. But sitting in my freezing car, staring at their warm windows, something shifts inside me. I don't want to crawl back. Not ever. But wanting strength and having options are two different things. My stomach growls, reminding me I haven't eaten since yesterday. It's almost midnight. I search for hotels on my dying phone. The prices might as well be $1 million. I try calling a few friends, but my mother spent years quietly isolating me from most of them. Part of me wonders if this moment is exactly what she wanted. For me to be so alone, I'd have no choice but to obey her. Forever. I refuse to let that be my ending. I drive to the only place still open, a 24-hour diner with a flickering neon sign. The waitress gives me a cautious, sympathetic look as I slide into a booth and order the cheapest coffee they have. I cradle it between my frozen hands, like it's the last warm thing on earth. That's when the black card slips from my pocket and clinks softly against the table. I freeze. The memory comes back sharp and clear. My grandfather's backyard, age 7, his warm hands pressing the card into mine. "One day, sweetheart, you'll need this. Use it only when you have no one else." I'd told him I'd never need it. My parents loved me. Or so I thought. The waitress passes by and glances at the card. Her eyes widen. She quickly looks away. "You have one of those," she murmurs, before hurrying back toward the kitchen, like she shouldn't have said anything. I run my thumb over the smooth metal surface. No name, just numbers engraved in gold. It doesn't even look like a normal bank card. It looks older, heavier, like a key to something I was never meant to open to. Early, I pull out my phone, 3% battery left, and search for the bank logo etched in the corner. Cumberland National Trust. Only one branch nearby, and it opens at 9 in the morning. The building in the search results looks like something from an old movie. Marble pillars, brass handles, far too elegant for someone like me. But the card came from Grandpa James, and if there was ever a moment I needed whatever he was trying to give me, it's now. My phone dies in my hand. Perfect. I sit there for 2 hours nursing the same coffee. The waitress refills it twice without charging me, probably out of pity, or maybe she recognizes something in my face, someone trying desperately not to fall apart. I keep the card hidden under my palm the entire time, afraid someone might see it, afraid of losing the one thing that might save me. Eventually, exhaustion wins. I stumble back to my car and curl up in the back seat, pulling my thin jacket over my knees. The windows fog as my breath turns white. The heater gave up hours ago. My fingers go numb, first, then my toes. Fear creeps in, the kind only people with nowhere to sleep understand. I think of Grandpa James again, his warm hands, his quiet smile, the way he always looked at me like I mattered. Maybe he knew this day was coming. Maybe he tried to warn me in the only way he could. Grandpa, I whisper into the cold darkness, I hope you knew what you were doing. The black card lies against my chest, tucked under my jacket like a borrowed heartbeat. Tomorrow I'll walk into that bank. Tomorrow I'll find out whether this card is worthless or the one thing that can change everything. For the first time since being thrown into the snow, I feel a flicker of something inside me. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. And possibility is enough to survive one more night. Morning comes too soon and too cold. I barely slept. My fingers are still numb when I grip the black card, now warmed slightly by my body heat. The parking lot of Cumberland National Trust is nearly empty when I pull in, my stomach twisting so hard it feels like I swallowed stones. I sit there for a minute, engine off, breath fogging the windshield, trying to convince myself I'm not insane for being here. But then I remember my mother's voice. You can't do anything on your own, Emma, sharp enough to slice through bone. If I don't walk into that bank now, her words will become true. I refuse to let them become true. I open the door and step into the cold. The wind stings my cheeks as I walk toward the towering building. It looks like the kind of place where real money lives. Old money, the kind my parents always pretended we came from, even though our house was financed through loans they struggled to pay. This building doesn't belong to people like them. It definitely doesn't belong to people like me, unless my grandfather meant what he said all those years ago. Inside, the air smells faintly of polished wood and wool coats. A receptionist in her 50s looks up from her desk and smiles. The kind of polite smile bank workers always give customers they assume don't belong. Good morning. How can we help you today? My voice almost catches. I need to check the balance on an old account. I have the card. I slide it across the counter. The receptionist's smile slips, not rudely, but with recognition, unexpected recognition. She turns the card over, examining it like it's a relic from another century. I'll call a manager, she says quietly. A manager? For a balance check? My brain, fried from exhaustion and fear, immediately jumps to the worst conclusions. Maybe the account is closed. Maybe the card is worthless. Maybe I'm about to be escorted out for wasting their time. I sit in one of the leather chairs near the window, folding my freezing hands in my lap. A mother with a toddler walks past me, the child giggling as he tries to grab her scarf. A retired couple sits a few seats away, quietly reviewing papers. Normal people with normal lives on a normal morning. None of them know I'm homeless. None of them know the reason I'm here is because my parents shoved me out the front door, like unwanted mail. 5 minutes pass. Then 10. Just when I'm about to convince myself to flee out of pure humiliation, a tall man in a charcoal suit appears in the doorway. He looks like he stepped out of a financial magazine. Sharp haircut, immaculate tie, controlled but not unfriendly expression. Miss Hartford? he says, hesitating only long enough to check the ID in his hand. Yes, I manage. He nods. I'm Daniel Cross, the branch manager. Would you come with me? We need to discuss your account privately. Privately. That word feels too big, too heavy. I force myself to stand and follow him down a hallway lined with framed photos of the bank's founders, stern men in old-fashioned suits staring down at me like I don't belong. His office smells like cedar and something crisp, expensive. He gestures for me to sit, then closes the door behind us before we proceed. He says, settling behind his desk, I need to verify your identity. I hand him my driver's license with shaking fingers. He studies it, types something on his computer, and the screen reflects faintly in his glasses. His eyebrows rise, only slightly, but I see it. Miss Hartford, he finally says, the card you brought in today is one of our legacy accounts. It hasn't been used in many years. He turns the screen toward me, and for a moment, everything inside me stops. Rows of documents, dozens of linked files, account details that look nothing like a simple savings account. And at the top corner of the screen, something that doesn't make sense at all. It's active. It's active, I whisper. Yes, Daniel says. Very active and very well protected. I swallow hard. Protected from whom? He pauses. From anyone but you. The words hit me like a punch. My grandfather wasn't dramatic. He wasn't cryptic. He didn't leave mysteries, except he did. He left this, whatever this is. Daniel pulls up another file. An internal note dated 23 years ago. My eyes widen as I read the name. James Hartford. My grandfather. He set up this account when I was only 3 years old. He wrote a directive beneath it. Only accessible by my granddaughter Emma, and only when she presents the physical legacy card. I feel dizzy. The room seems too small, too bright, too surreal. Daniel leans forward, his voice lowering slightly. Miss Hartford, before I show you anything else, may I ask why you decided to use the card today? I look down at my hands. They're trembling again, but I don't try to hide it. My parents kicked me out last night, on Christmas Eve. They didn't even let me take my things. I don't have money for a hotel. I didn't know what else to do. Daniel's expression doesn't change dramatically, but something in his posture softens. I see it. I see, he says. 2 small words, but they hold something I haven't heard in a long time. Respect. Or maybe concern. Or maybe compassion. Real compassion, from someone who doesn't know me. Someone who doesn't benefit from comforting me. I don't even know if there's anything in the account. I continue, my voice shaking. I just remembered my grandfather said to use it, if I had nowhere else to turn. Daniel nods slowly. He was very intentional about that. He clicks into another section on the screen. My stomach twists tighter. The numbers flicker into view. For the first time in hours, I inhale sharply. The breath feels like ice in my lungs. Is that? Can that be right? I can barely form the words. Is that the balance? Daniel doesn't answer immediately. He lets the moment land, lets the truth sit between us. Then he gently rotates the monitor all the way so I can see it fully. But I don't look, not yet, because I can't bring myself to. I'm terrified. Terrified it's nothing. Terrified it's something. Terrified of what either possibility means. Finally, I force my eyes to the numbers, and everything inside me folds. I blink rapidly, unable to comprehend the digits, the commas, the length of the balance. My pulse spikes, a roaring in my ears drowning out everything in the room. No, I whisper. That can't be right. Daniel's voice is steady. It is. The air leaves my lungs all at once. My hands fly to my mouth. I gasp, like someone pulled me out of deep water. Because the number on the screen isn't small. It isn't even modest. It isn't something I could explain away or rationalize. It's life-changing. It's unreal. It's impossible. My parents. I shake my head, breath hitching. They always said he had nothing. They said he lived off Social Security. They said he couldn't help me even if he wanted to. Daniel folds his hands. Your parents were not given access to this account? Ever. Your grandfather's instructions were explicit. My throat burns. My vision blurs. For years, I believed my grandfather forgot about me. For years, I believed my parents' narrative, that he didn't care, that he was confused, that he didn't love me. But he did. He loved me enough to prepare for the day they would cast me out. Now here's where things get really insane. And I need you to stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you changed everything I thought I knew about my family. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know where you're from. I read every single one. And honestly, your support means more than you know during all of this. I press a trembling hand over my heart. I can feel it pounding, frantic and furious. I don't understand. I whisper. Why me? Why did he do all this for me? Daniel slowly opens a drawer and places a sealed, red folder on the desk between us. Because he wanted you to know the truth, he says softly. All of it. I stare at the folder. My grandfather's handwriting covers the top. For Emma, when you are finally free. My chest tightens. Daniel meets my eyes. Miss Hartford, I think you should read this. And with that sentence, my entire life tilts on its axis. Daniel turns the screen toward me slowly, as if he knows the numbers on it might break something open inside me. At first, the rows of digits don't register. My brain tries to make sense of them, but I've never seen numbers that long outside of corporate scandals or tech company valuations on the news. My breath stalls. My pulse skids sideways. For a moment, I genuinely think the monitor must be showing someone else's information. Someone important. Someone powerful. Someone who isn't me. But then Daniel speaks, his voice low and almost reverent. Miss Hartford, this is your account. My heart lurches so hard it hurts. I blink at the screen again. $67.2 million. My hands grip the armrests of the leather chair, so tightly my knuckles turn white. The world feels like it's tilting, as if the floor underneath us isn't marble, but ice about to crack. There has to be a mistake, I choke out. I can't even pay for a motel room. I slept in my car last night using a jacket as a blanket. I am the kind of person who measures grocery trips against Tao. Many days I can stretch a pack of pasta. And yet here I am, staring at more money than my parents have seen in their entire lives. I don't... My voice cracks. That can't be real. Daniel doesn't smile, doesn't comfort me, doesn't sugarcoat. He simply nods once, firmly. It's real. And this is only the liquid portion. Only the liquid portion? The phrase makes my stomach swoop. He starts clicking through tabs, each one filled with information that knocks the air out of me. Commercial property deeds. Land holdings in 3 counties. Stocks and companies I recognize from headlines. A partnership in a tech firm I've definitely heard about on the news. My grandfather, the quiet man who wore the same cardigan for years, who ate canned soup for lunch, who insisted coupons were the cornerstone of a wise life, owned a fortune, more than a fortune, an empire. I'm still staring when Daniel reaches to the side and pulls a red folder from a locked drawer. He sets it gently in front of me, like it's something living. This contains the files your grandfather asked us to keep sealed until you came in with the legacy card. Legacy. That word hits me in the chest. My hands tremble as I open the folder. The first thing inside is a handwritten letter, addressed to me in my grandfather's looping script. The sight of his handwriting alone makes my throat burn. But before I can read it, a line of text printed on the inside cover catches my eye. For Emma's eyes only. The truth about your parents. A cold ripple moves up my spine. Why would he? I start. Daniel gently clears his throat. Miss Hartford, your grandfather was very deliberate. You were meant to know everything once you were no longer under their control. Under their control? Hearing someone else say it makes bile rise in my throat. My parents weren't strict. They weren't protective. They were suffocating, manipulative, controlling in ways I could never fully articulate. I turn the page. A timeline appears. Month by month, year by year, documentation of my grandfather's last decade. Medical reports showing he was mentally competent. Banking notes, legal communications. every detail carefully recorded in case he ever needed to prove his decisions. My parents always said he was confused, fading, losing touch with reality. They said that was why he never left them anything, why he didn't want visitors, why I shouldn't bother him with my presence. Lie after lie. The documents show the truth. He begged them to let me visit him. Begged? My mother intercepted the letters he wrote. The folder contains scanned copies. Letters I never saw. One reads, "My sweet girl, I miss you every day. They won't let me see you. I don't know why. But please remember, I love you more than life itself." A tear hits the page before I can stop it. My vision blurs. I grip the folder like it's the only solid thing in the room. "I never got any of these," I whisper, my voice cracking. "I know," Daniel says softly. "Your grandfather suspected they were intercepting them." I turn another page. A legal statement. "James filed after an incident 8 years ago. If anything happens to me suddenly, investigate Richard and Patricia Hartford first." Seeing my parents' names in black ink under the words "suspected coercion and financial manipulation" makes my stomach twist. My grandfather knew. He knew what they were capable of, knew what they did to him, and what they would eventually do to me. I pick up the letter addressed to me. My fingers tremble as I unfold it. "My Emma, if you are reading this, it means they have cast you aside. I hoped it wouldn't happen, but I feared it would. They value control above all else. You must know this truth. None of their words about you were ever real. You were never weak. You were never a burden. You were the best part of this family. Everything I built because I knew you would one day need freedom. Take this chance, my dear girl. Use it to live the life they never allowed you to dream of. You are my legacy. With all my love, Grandpa James." I press the letter to my chest. A sob escapes me, raw and painful. For years, I thought he forgot me. I thought I wasn't worth remembering. I was wrong. My parents made sure I believed I was forgettable. They kept me small, quiet, obedient. They shaped my entire sense of self around the lie that I was unwanted. But here, in this folder, is proof of the opposite. Proof that the only person who ever saw me clearly left everything to me, because he believed I deserved better. "Why me?" I whisper again. "Why not my father? Why not my brother?" Daniel looks at me with a level of sympathy that feels almost parental. "Because he trusted you. Because he saw their intentions long before you could. And because you were the only person who cared for him without wanting anything in return." I swallow hard. Memories flood me. Sitting in my grandfather's garden while he told me stories, while my parents dismissed him as old-fashioned or irrelevant, I never understood why he always looked at me with such sadness, such knowing. Now I do. I turn another page. More evidence. More lies unraveled. More truth revealed. My father tried to gain power of attorney over James when he was hospitalized once. The doctor refused to sign the competency declaration. My mother pressured James to invest in family plans involving Michael's failed business. And when James refused, they cut ties. Not because they cared for his health, but because they were furious he wouldn't hand them control. My breath shakes as I close the file. "What happens now?" I ask. Daniel folds his hands. "Now, Miss Hartford, you decide what you want. But before anything else, there is one final document your grandfather left. It requires your authorization to access it." He places a small biometric scanner on the desk beside an encrypted drive. "This contains the full truth about your family," he says quietly, "and instructions from your grandfather for your future." Instructions. My heartbeat pounds. The room feels too still. "Are you ready?" he asks. Am I? My parents threw me out like trash. They made sure I had nothing. No money, no clothes, no home, no self-worth. And yet the man they dismissed as senile and worthless built an empire and left every piece of it to me. I don't know if I'm ready, but I know I have to be. I place my thumb on the scanner. The light turns green. The encrypted drive begins to unlock. Loading files, line by line. Daniel watches the screen, his expression tightening. "There's something else," he murmurs, almost to himself. Something your grandfather didn't want anyone to find. Until now. The final file loads. Daniel exhales, turns the monitor toward me, and says, "Miss Hartford, you need to see this." What I saw on that screen didn't just change my understanding of my parents. It changed everything I thought I knew about my entire life. The encrypted files, loaded line by line, the cursor blinking like a pulse on a heart monitor. Steady, unhurried, while my own heartbeat pounded loud enough to drown out the quiet hum of Daniel's office. I tried to breathe normally, but it felt like every breath hitched in my chest. When the screen finally stopped flickering, Daniel angled the monitor toward me. "Miss Hartford," he said softly, "your grandfather wanted you to see this. If he ever feared your parents would harm you, financially, emotionally, or otherwise." The first file opened automatically. A title stretched across the top in bold letters. "For Emma's eyes only. A complete record of your parents' actions." My stomach knotted. I set my hands in my lap so they didn't visibly shake, but I don't think it helped. I clicked the first entry. A timeline appeared. 10 years of dates, 10 years of carefully documented reports, emails, transcripts, and notarized statements. Every entry, written or signed by my grandfather. My throat closed slowly, like someone was squeezing it. The first note began, "My son and his wife have begun attempting to control my financial decisions." I blinked, reading it twice. My parents always claimed he was forgetful, losing touch with the world. My mother would say, shaking her head with exaggerated pity, "He doesn't even remember where he put his glasses half the time." My father called him unstable, and said I should stop visiting because it stressed him out. But the tone of this note was steady, clear, sharp. Nothing about it was confused. I scrolled. Another entry appeared. This one with a scanned doctor's evaluation. "Patient is fully competent. No signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. Recommending continued independent living with regular medical check-ins." I felt like I was falling through the chair. Every story my parents told me collapsed, like it was built of tissue paper. They said he couldn't manage his money anymore. They said he was embarrassed to see me. They said he didn't recognize me. They said he didn't want visitors. All lies. The next set of files were letters, written in my grandfather's familiar, looping handwriting. Each addressed to me, each dated during a period when my parents told me he didn't want to see anyone. My breath caught. There were dozens. I clicked the first one. "My dearest Emma, I've written to you twice without a reply. I assume your parents are not giving you my letters." A sound slipped out of me. Half gasp, half wounded noise. The kind I didn't even know I could make. I felt 10 years old again, sitting on my childhood bed, wondering why I mattered so little. I clicked another. "I asked them again today if you could come visit. They said you were too busy. I hope you know I would drop everything to see you if I could." A tear fell onto the desk. I wiped it away quickly, embarrassed, but Daniel remained respectfully silent, as if he'd seen grief take many forms and understood this one. Another document loaded automatically. This one, not a letter, but a transcript. Meeting record. Cumberland National Trust. Attending. James Hartford, Estate Manager, Compliance Officer. My grandfather's voice came through faintly in the audio file, shaky only because of age, not confusion. "My son and daughter-in-law attempted to have me declared mentally incompetent today. They brought in papers they wanted me to sign. I refused." I stopped the audio, hands trembling harder. My parents tried to take his finances, tried to control him. They did the same thing to me in every way that didn't require a bank signature. "When was this?" I whispered. Daniel clicked to the date. 9 years ago, the year you graduated from high school. The year they forbid me from visiting him. For his own good, they'd said. It wasn't for his good. It was because he stood between them and access to his money. I scrolled again. More documents. More proof. A physician's note. Adult children appear motivated by financial gain, not concerned for the patient's well-being. Recommend legal barriers be reinforced. My pulse was so loud it thudded in my ears. Daniel shifted slightly in his chair. "Your grandfather was very clear but you were the only person he trusted. I swallowed hard. Why didn't he tell me any of this? Why didn't he warn me? He tried, Daniel said gently. Your parents cut off all channels of communication. I closed my eyes. They didn't just isolate him. They isolated me from him, from the one person who truly loved me. I turned to the next section, labeled Attempted Financial Takeover, Incident Record. Inside were scanned copies of bank statements, legal notices, and a formal report filed by my grandfather. They tried to gain full control of his assets by claiming he was unfit. They demanded the bank release his accounts to them. They even tried to move money into a family-managed trust with themselves, listed as primary beneficiaries. My stomach churned as I read the note my grandfather added beneath the report. Protect Emma from them. If anything happens to me, the words burn. I kept scrolling. Another cluster of documents revealed how my parents began portraying him as unstable to their friends, neighbors, the community, poisoning the reputation of the one person who saw straight through them. Emails between my mother and father appeared, ones I was never meant to see. Sentences jumped out at me like venom. He needs to give us control, or he'll waste everything on nonsense. We deserve access after everything we've done. If Emma keeps visiting him, he might leave her something. Everything, finally, painfully, horribly, made sense. The sudden shift in their rules, the guilt-tripping, the coldness. The moments where they forgot to tell me he called. The pressure to distance myself from him. They did it because he loved me, and because they hated that. My throat stung. I scrolled again. This time, a map popped up, an aerial view with red markings, circles, hand-drawn arrows. Beside it, a typed label, properties to be transferred to Emma under protective trust. There were 10 markers. 10, not just money, not just stocks, land-rented buildings, a stake in multiple companies. He built something massive and hid it from the very people who wanted to exploit him. I opened the final document in the folder. A note, handwritten in faint, shaky ink. My darling Emma, if you are reading this, then what I feared has happened. They have done to you what they tried to do to me. Do not let them back into your life. They will only take and take until there is nothing left of you. Use what I've left to you to build a life of your own. Choosing. You have always deserved more than they ever gave you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you more, but I prepared everything so that when they showed who they truly are, you would finally know who you truly are. Not their child, not their burden, not their failure. My legacy. James. I'm shaking so hard I can barely hold the letter. For years, I thought I was unwanted. A disappointment. A problem. A burden too heavy for my parents to tolerate. But none of that was true. They weren't pushing me away because I was unlovable. They were pushing me away because they were terrified of what I might inherit, both financially and emotionally. What I might know, who I might become. The door behind me clicked softly as Daniel stood. There is one more step, he said, voice still gentle. Your grandfather created multiple layers of protection to access the sealed vault containing the rest of his instructions. Legal, financial, and personal. We need your biometric authorization. My head spun. There's more? Yes, he said. Much more. I looked at the black card on the desk. The strange weight of it, the way it hummed was something like memory. My whole life I believed the story my parents fed me. Today, that story ends, and the real one begins. I straightened in the chair, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. Show me what he left, I said. Daniel nodded and powered on the biometric scanner. The future glowed on the screen, waiting for me to claim it. I walked out of the bank with the red confidential folder pressed tightly to my chest. Snowflakes melting against the thin fabric of my sweater. The cold barely registered. My mind was too full, too loud, bursting at the seams with everything I had just learned. $67 million. Properties, investments, letters my parents stole. A lifetime of truth, buried under years of lies. My entire world had broken open inside a marble office with brass fixtures and gentle lighting. I felt shaky, electrified. weightless in the worst and best way. I reached my beat-up car, slid into the driver's seat, and didn't start the engine. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel forward against the leather. The parking lot around me blurred through the frost gathering on the windows. For a moment, I closed my eyes and just breathed. I wasn't broken. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't what my parents said I was. I had proof, but with that proof came a new terror. What now? The black card rested in my pocket, warm from my touch. I pulled it out, running my thumb along the engraved gold numbers. My grandfather had known. He had prepared for this. He had expected this. And that thought both comforted me and shattered my heart. 10 minutes passed, maybe 20. Eventually, I forced myself upright, wiping my face. I wasn't going to collapse in a bank parking lot. Not when I finally had something resembling power. My phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. We need to talk. My stomach twisted. I blocked it before the fear could get a foothold. I turned the key and drove. The farther I got from the bank, the more surreal everything felt. It was like I was floating above myself, watching a version of me I barely recognized. The Emma who drove to the diner last night was homeless, desperate, shaking in the cold. The Emma leaving Cumberland National Trust was something else entirely. Not rich, not yet, not emotionally, but no longer someone her parents could crush. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a small cafe I used to visit in college. Warm lights, fogged windows, the lingering smell of cinnamon and roasted coffee drifting out every time a customer entered. I needed to sit, to think, to breathe like a human being and not a creature running from the wreckage of my own life. Inside, a Christmas tree glowed in the corner, decorated with mismatched ornaments from local school children. A couple in their 70s sat near the window, laughing gently about something in the newspaper. A barista hummed along to a holiday playlist. Normal. Everything felt so painfully normal. I slid into a booth, my hands still trembling as I opened the red folder. The documents inside were organized, neat, curated, by someone who loved me enough to plan for a future I didn't know I needed. But this wasn't everything. Daniel had mentioned another meeting. Someone else. I checked my phone. A voicemail from the bank. Miss Hartford, this is Daniel. Before you leave town today, please return to the branch. We need to complete the estate disclosures with our senior specialist. It's important. She shut her eyes, exhaling shakily. Important was an understatement. 20 minutes later, I was back in the marble lobby, snow melting off my boots. Daniel met me immediately, his expression more serious than before. He introduced me to a woman with silver hair, warm eyes, and a voice like steady oak. Miss Hartford, she greeted, offering her hand. I'm Sandra Pierce. I managed your grandfather's accounts for 22 years. I blinked. You knew him well? Sandra's gaze softened. He was one of the most thoughtful clients I've ever had. He spoke about you constantly. The words hit so hard I almost forgot to breathe. Sandra led us to a private conference room. Papers were already spread out across the table. Property maps, valuation reports, legal notes, investment summaries. And another box, smaller, locked. This, Sandra said, touching the lid gently, was left in our care for you. But it required 2 forms of authorization, one from you, one from your grandfather. My grandfather passed, I whispered. Sandra nodded. He provided a pre-recorded authorization. We'll use your biometric ID to complete the verification. I stared down at the box, my chest tight. This wasn't just money, this was intention, a legacy, protection, love. Are you ready? Sandra asked. I nodded, even though I wasn't ready at all. The scanner beeped. A green light flashed. The lock clicked. When Sandra lifted the lid, I felt the air thrum. Inside were keys. Dozens of them, each tagged with a neat handwritten label. A storage facility number. A farmhouse address I didn't recognize. A commercial building. Something labeled Hartford Lot, Do Not Sell. And a sealed envelope with corporate logos. I traced my finger in disbelief. What is all this? Your grandfather's hidden portfolio, Sandra explained. He didn't trust your parents to know about it. He didn't trust anyone but you. I felt my throat close. But they always said he was broke. They always told me he'd mismanaged everything. Sandra sighed softly. Your parents tried to take control of his estate a decade ago. When they failed, they turned to misinformation, a polite word for lies. Next, Sandra opened a thick binder she'd been preparing since yesterday. This morning, she said, your parents filed an emergency petition with the court. My stomach dropped. What kind of petition? They're trying to claim you're mentally unstable and unfit to control assets. The world tilted. What? I choked out. They're saying Sandra tapped the page. Predictable tactic. They're attempting to build a narrative. I stared at the words on the page. My name next to phrases like delusional tendencies and emotional instability and concerns for her decision-making. A cold shiver ran down my spine. My entire life, I whispered. They said those things to me. Exactly, Sandra replied. They groomed you to believe it so they could weaponize it. Now. My eyes burned. Every memory with him suddenly felt sharper, clearer, more sinister. Sandra placed a hand over mine, firm but gentle. We will destroy this petition. I nodded, even though my throat was tight. We went over documents, messages, evidence, every lie they told, every threat they made. Sandra gathered everything into a binder labeled E, Hartford Abuse File. It's time you see your life clearly, she said. No more fog. Her confidence was a buoy in a sea of panic. The meeting ended with instructions. Stay in public places. Document everything. Avoid being alone at night. As I left her office, the sky was darkening. The early winter sunset casting long shadows across the street. My breath fogged in the cold air. I pulled my coat tighter around me. Halfway to my car, I saw movement to my right. The gray sedan, parked at the corner. Engine running, lights off, watching. I froze, panic skittering through my veins. Before fear could swallow me, a voice called out, "Emma!" I jumped, turning toward the sound. A man stood across the sidewalk, coat half-zipped, keys in his hand, doctor's ID still clipped to his pocket. I thought I'd swing by and check, he said softly. You didn't answer my last text. The relief was so immediate and overwhelming, my knees nearly buckled. He followed my gaze, saw the sedan, and stepped closer. His expression darkened. That's him, I whispered. The one following me? He didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone and snapped a photo. Then he moved in front of me, protective, shoulders rigid. You are not touching her, he said under his breath. Not loud enough for the driver, but loud enough for me to hear, to feel safe. The sedan finally pulled away, melting into traffic like a ghost. I sagged against my car door, heart hammering wildly. The man put a steady hand on my shoulder. You need backup, he said. And you have it. Whatever this is, you're not facing it alone. I swallowed hard, fighting tears. Why? I whispered. Why are you doing this for me? He studied me with quiet intensity. Because you deserve someone in your corner, and because I care. The words broke something open inside me, something brittle, fragile, long abandoned. I nodded, unable to speak. He gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze before stepping back. Go home, he said softly. Lock your doors. Text me when you're inside. If anything feels off, you call me immediately. I promise I will, I managed. But when I got back to my hotel room, there was a package on my door. No return address, no label, just a plain brown box. My stomach churned. I picked it up with 2 fingers, like it might explode. Inside, there's no object, just a single sheet of paper. You can't hide. We'll get back what belongs to us. My hands trembled so hard I almost dropped it. I texted the photo to Sandra. Her response was immediate. He's escalating. We're filing for an emergency restraining order. Tomorrow morning. Lock your door. Do not open anything else. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing in short, sharp bursts. The note crumpled in my fist. For the first time, I understood something terrifying. My parents aren't going to stop. But neither am I. Not anymore. And if you've made it this far with me, I need to ask you something. Have you ever had to cut ties with family? Have you ever felt like the people who should love you the most actually see you as nothing more than a tool? Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one, and honestly, knowing I'm not alone in this makes all the difference. Hit subscribe if you want to see how this ends, because I promise you, it gets even more intense from here. The judge's gavel hit the bench with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom, and suddenly every molecule of air felt too thick to breathe. I gripped the edge of the table so tightly, my fingers ached. Sandra stood beside me, calm and terrifying in her navy suit, her presence radiating the kind of controlled power my parents never imagined I'd have on my side. Across the aisle, my mother adjusted her pearl necklace with a trembling hand, while my father stared at me like I was a stain he could scrub off the family name. They looked smaller than I remembered, desperate, cornered, and still somehow arrogant enough to think they could win. All parties are present, the judge said, his voice clipped like he was already annoyed. This is the emergency hearing concerning the petition filed by Richard and Patricia Hartford regarding the mental fitness of their daughter, Emma Hartford. My father sat straighter, smoothing his tie. My mother put on her trembling lip, ready to weaponize tears. I braced myself. Their attorney, a thin, sharp-featured woman who looked like she ate broken rules for breakfast, stepped forward first. Your Honor, we are here today out of deep concern for our daughter. She has displayed increasingly erratic behavior, made impulsive financial decisions, and— That's a lie, I whispered. But Sandra touched my arm lightly. Wait, the attorney continued, and has recently gained access to funds set up by her grandfather, while in an emotionally unstable condition. We fear she is being manipulated by outside influences, and is not mentally capable of managing such assets. My mother dabbed at her eyes delicately. Fake, all of it. Sandra stood, her movements precise. Your Honor, we are prepared to respond to all allegations, including evidence of stalking, harassment, and financial manipulation committed by the petitioners. The judge's gaze sharpened. Proceed, Sandra began, with a stack of documents. First, medical reports from Mr. James Hartford's physicians, confirming he was fully competent when he established the legacy trust for my client. She handed them to the bailiff. My parents stiffened. Next, Sandra continued, security footage from Cumberland National Trust from 9 years ago, showing the petitioners attempting to coerce an elderly man into signing over control of his estate. My father jerked upright. My mother gasped softly. Their attorney tried to object, but the judge silenced her with a raised hand. The footage played on the courtroom monitor. There was my father, face twisted with frustration, pointing at a stack of papers. My mother hovering behind him, her lips thin with anger, and my grandfather, calm but unyielding, refusing to sign anything. The courtroom was dead silent. Sandra continued. We also have email correspondence from the petitioners to various third parties, attempting to frame Mr. Hartford as mentally incompetent. These emails contain statements such as, and I quote, "He's old. Who's going to believe him?" My father's jaw clenched. My mother's face turned pale. And finally, Sandra said, pulling out a printed transcript, "We have the letters Mr. Hartford wrote to my client. Letters her parents intercepted and concealed." She read one aloud. My grandfather's voice on paper felt like a hand on my heart. "My sweet girl, I miss you. They won't let you visit. I am so sorry. Please remember I love you." I covered my mouth with my hand. The judge's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. Then Sandra dealt the blow that broke everything open. There is also evidence that the petitioners hired a private investigator to follow my client, including footage of the same vehicle appearing outside her hotel and trailing her on multiple occasions. She gestured to the screen again as images flashed, my own photos of the gray sedan. My father burst forward suddenly, slamming his hands on the table. That is taken out of context. The judge slammed his gavel. One more outburst, and you will be removed. My father's chest heaved as he sank back into his seat, eyes burning with fury. Your Honor, Sandra said, it is clear the petitioners are not concerned parents. They are individuals attempting to regain access to an estate they failed to seize from the rightful beneficiary. The opposing attorney stood, but even she looked rattled. Your Honor, we believe. You believe nothing with evidence to support it, the judge snapped, rubbing his forehead. He glanced at the documents, then at me. His next words felt like oxygen. Petition denied. My breath rushed out in a shaky gasp. The judge continued, voice firmer now. Furthermore, due to the documented harassment, stalking, and attempted coercion, this court issues a temporary restraining order against Richard and Patricia Hartford, effective immediately. My mother's face crumpled. My father went scarlet. And the judge added sharply, I will be recommending this case be reviewed by criminal investigators for potential charges. My parents both whipped their heads toward me, outrage written across their faces. Their attorney looked ready to sink through the floor. Sandra nodded once, satisfied. Thank you, Your Honor. We exited the courtroom, and I leaned against the wall outside, shaking. Relief and terror battled inside my chest. The threat was contained, but not dead. The man from earlier, the one who'd been checking on me, appeared in the hallway like he'd been waiting for this moment. He stepped toward me slowly, as if unsure whether he was allowed to touch me. You did it, he murmured. You stood up to them. I feel like I'm going to collapse, I admitted. You're allowed to, he said softly. Just not alone. I let out a trembling breath. They aren't going to stop. No, he agreed. But now they have consequences chasing them. And you have people standing between you and them. Sandra stepped out, her heels clicking decisively. Emma, we're not finished. There's still a long process ahead. But today, you won. And you're safe, for the moment. Safe, a word I hadn't felt in years. The man took my hand gently. Come on, let me walk you to your car. We stepped outside, into the brittle winter air. The gray sedan was nowhere in sight today. Maybe, finally, the loss scared them back into whatever shadows they came from. But as I reached my car door, my phone buzzed again. A new message. No number. No name. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. My blood ran cold. The man saw my expression and took the phone from my hand. When he read the message, his jaw tightened in a way that sent fear and comfort warring inside me. He looked up slowly. They're not done, he said. Neither am I whispered. Not anymore. He handed me back my phone. We'll tell Sandra. We'll file it. We'll fight everything they throw. I nodded, swallowing hard. I survived the hearing. I survived the exposure of a decade of lies. And with every new threat, every new attempt to pull me back under their control, something inside me hardened. My parents started a war, but I was finally learning how to fight. The snow fell heavier the next morning, blanketing the streets in a cold, muffling quiet that somehow made everything feel more dangerous. I stood at my hotel window, watching the flakes drift past the street lamps, my stomach tight with dread. The victory in court yesterday should have made me feel triumphant. But instead, the silence after the storm felt like a warning. My parents lost their petition. They were exposed, cornered, and people like them only lash out harder when they're backed against a wall. My phone buzzed with a text from Sandra. Police found evidence. The PI tampered with your mail. Meeting at my office at 10. Don't come alone. Stay visible. I stared at those words longer than I should. Don't come alone. It shouldn't make me emotional, but it did. Someone was thinking about my safety, not in a controlling way, not in a guilt-tripping way. Just care. A second text came through. The man from yesterday. Good morning. Are you up? How are you feeling? I can drive you to Sandra's if you want. I exhaled slowly, my chest loosening. I typed back before I could overthink it. Yes, please. By 9:30, he was knocking gently on my hotel door. When I opened it, he took one look at me and frowned. You didn't sleep again, he said softly. Hard to sleep when someone may be trying to break into my life, I admitted. He didn't hesitate. He lifted his hand and squeezed my shoulder. Let's go. The drive to Sandra's office was quiet at first. The world outside was cold and untouched, but inside the car, the warm air and faint scent of his cologne made the anxiety recede, just enough for me to speak. Did you ever feel trapped? I asked. Like something was happening to your life, and no matter what you did, it kept getting worse. He watched the icy road, his jaw tightening. Every day, for months after my wife died. Your wife? I whispered. My fiancée, he corrected gently. She was sick for a long time. I spent so many nights thinking I was losing more than just her. I felt like I was losing myself. I watched him closely. He wasn't saying this to draw attention or sympathy. He was offering honesty, connection, a bridge. I'm sorry, I said quietly. He nodded, eyes never leaving the road. It broke me, but I survived. You will too. The words settled in my chest like warm stones. Sandra's office was buzzing when we arrived. Phones ringing, paper stacking, assistants rushing purposefully. Something shifted overnight. Something big. Sandra opened the door before we could knock. Good. You're both here. Come in. She looked more intense than usual, which was saying something. I sat while the man stood nearby, leaning against the bookshelf, like my unspoken protector. Sandra wasted no time. The private investigator your parents hired, he was arrested this morning. I blinked. Arrested? For trespassing? Tampering with personal mail? Attempted coercion? And tracking your vehicle without consent, she said flatly. I stared at her, stunned. He confessed to everything, she continued, and he gave names. Your parents paid him in cash from a separate account to avoid a paper trail. My stomach flipped. They're caught, then? Sandra lifted a hand. It's not that simple. The PI is cooperating to lessen his charges, but he claims your parents received a tip-off about your inheritance months ago. The man shifted behind me. From who? Someone inside the bank, Sandra said. Someone who violated confidentiality rules. We're working with the bank now to identify the source. I gripped the arms of the chair. So they've been planning this whole time. Since the moment they suspected I might have anything of value. Sandra nodded grimly. They needed you vulnerable. They needed to control the narrative. If you appeared unstable or homeless, they could argue you were unfit to handle assets. It was all strategic. A wave of nausea rolled through me. They were trying to force me into a corner, I whispered. Sandra finished softly. To reclaim what they believed should have been theirs. I covered my face with my hands. Beside me, the man stepped closer, resting a hand at the back of my chair. Then what do we do now? He asked Sandra. She gestured to a stack of documents. We go on offense. Her voice turned sharp, powerful. We file for a permanent restraining order. We file harassment charges. We file a civil suit for damages, including emotional distress, stalking, defamation, and attempted asset theft. And we open a criminal negligence investigation. My eyes widened. All of that? All of that, Sandra confirmed. We overwhelm them legally before they can regroup. She handed me another document, this one bearing the seal of the county court. And there's something else, she added, lowering her voice. The judge, from yesterday, has expedited your petition for emergency protection under the Family Harassment and Abuse Act. He saw the PI's arrest report. I swallowed hard. What does that mean? It means the court believes you're in danger, she said, and they're acting fast to shield you. I nodded slowly. It felt surreal to be protected by systems I always believed would fail me. Then an unexpected question slipped from my mouth. Will they go to jail? Sandra's expression turned steel hard. If the investigation continues this direction. Yes, the man exhaled, relief and anger mixing on his face. Good. But then Sandra softened, studying me. Emma, she said gently, are you ready for that possibility? I sat quietly, considering it. Jail, my parents behind bars. Part of me recoiled. They're still my parents. They raised me, fed me, spoke the words I love you, even if they never meant them the way normal parents do. But another part of me, the part they tried to crush, knows the truth. If I don't stop them, they'll never stop me. Yes, I whispered. I'm ready. Sandra nodded and stood. Good. Then we moved forward. Inside the office, everything felt strong, actionable, controlled. Outside the storm was still waiting. Hours later, when the man drove me back to my hotel, the wind howled against the windshield. I felt drained, hollowed out, but strangely steadier. Sandra has a plan. The judge believes me. The PI confessed, and this man beside me is becoming a constant I didn't know I needed. When he pulled into the hotel lot, he turned to me with a seriousness that made my heart dip. "You shouldn't stay here tonight," he said. "It's okay," I began, but he shook his head. "No, it isn't. Someone left a package at your door yesterday. That means they know where you sleep." A shiver crawled up my spine. "Come, stay at my place," he said gently. "Just for tonight. I have security cameras, a doorman, and a 24-hour desk. You'll be safe." My heart twisted, not with fear. Something else, something warm and frightening. "I don't want to be a burden," I whispered. He stepped closer, voice soft. "Emma, you're not a burden. You're someone I care about deeply." My breath caught. He held out his hand. "Come with me." And for the first time in my life, I reached for safety instead of running from fear. "Yes," I whispered, slipping my fingers into his. "I'll come." Snow was falling again the morning. Everything finally shifted. I watched it from his kitchen window, the city washed in white, quiet in a way that almost felt unreal after weeks of chaos. For the first time in what felt like forever, my shoulders weren't knotted in fear. My phone wasn't buzzing with threats. No dark cars idled outside. The world was still, but the stillness wasn't fragile anymore. It felt earned. He moved around the kitchen behind me, barefoot, half awake, making coffee like he'd been doing it beside me for years. His presence no longer startled me. It settled me. Each small gesture, reaching past me for a mug, brushing a hand against my back, kissing the top of my head as he passed, felt like a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. Not anymore. Sandra had emailed last night with the final update. The case was closed. The fraud investigation into my parents was complete, and charges, real, serious charges, were moving forward. I wasn't required to testify. Their emails, messages, and the PI's confession were more than enough. My parents were no longer lurking shadows in my life. There were legal consequences waiting to happen, and I was free. A knock came at the door. He looked up, surprised. "That'll be the security detail," he murmured. "Sandra said they'd stop by this morning." For once, I didn't tense. I didn't check the peephole 3 times. I didn't feel hunted. The security officer standing outside introduced himself, gave us the court's final documents, and left. No drama, no threat, just closure, delivered in a manila envelope. I sat at the table, fingers trembling only slightly as I opened it. The permanent restraining order, full control of my grandfather's estate, official confirmation that I had been the victim, not the perpetrator, of manipulation, and one more thing, a letter from the court-appointed financial evaluator. I opened it and blinked. They had audited everything. The accounts, the recordings, the documents my grandfather left behind. And they discovered more. More investments, more assets, more property my parents didn't even know existed because my grandfather had hidden them too well. I let out a strangled laugh. He looked up. "Good news?" "He left me more than we thought," I whispered. "A lot more." He pulled out the chair next to me. "Then maybe it's time you decide how to use it." I stared down at the letter and felt something I hadn't felt in years. An open horizon. A future that belonged to me, not shaped by fear or obligation. Not glistened through keyholes or dictated by someone else's cruelty, mine. Later that afternoon, Sandra called with one last update. "It's done," she said simply. "They can't touch you again." I stepped out onto the apartment balcony as she spoke, listening to the hum of the city below, breathing in cold air that tasted like relief. When we ended the call, I stayed there a while, letting the wind tangle my hair, letting the reality of my new life sink in. He joined me a moment later, hands tucked into his pockets. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think, for the first time, I know what that feels like." He smiled, the way he always did when he wanted to make sure I believed in myself. What's next, Emma? I turned to him, feeling warmth spread through my chest. I want a home, I said softly. A real one, not a place to hide. A place to live. A place where I can breathe. He nodded slowly. Good. And I hesitated, searching his face. I want you there, if you want to be. His expression softened. Gentle, steady, full of something that felt a lot like promise. I'm not going anywhere, he murmured. Wherever you go next, I'm right beside you. I didn't realize I was crying until he brushed a tear away with his thumb. Weeks later, when the last snow melted and the first signs of spring touched the edges of the city, we stood in front of a little brick house just outside town. A quiet street, a yard my grandfather would have loved, a porch where light pooled in the afternoons. Not a mansion, not a fortress. A beginning. A symbol of everything I built for myself. Freedom, safety, peace. Inside, we painted walls, unpacked boxes, and built a life. He filled the kitchen with laughter and music. I filled the shelves with books and the windowsill with plants. The security system was state-of-the-art. Not because I lived in fear, but because I finally valued myself enough to protect my future. And sometimes, when the sun slanted right and the world felt particularly gentle, I could almost feel my grandfather in the house with me, watching over me the way he always wanted to. I visited his grave one morning in early summer. The air was warm, and the flowers I brought rustled softly in the breeze. You were right, I whispered, about all of it. Thank you for believing in me before I ever learned to believe in myself. I laid the flowers down and rested my hand against the cool stone. I'm okay now, I said. I'm finally okay. As I walked back to my car, I felt lighter, stronger, whole. And when I got home, my home, he was waiting on the porch, smiling the way someone smiles when they know they've found the place they're meant to stay. If you've made it this far, thank you for sharing this journey with me. If you've ever felt trapped, betrayed, or underestimated, I hope my story reminds you that your worth isn't defined by the people who fail to see it. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a new chapter. There's more to come, and I'd love for you to stay with me as we keep moving forward together.